Posso verificar o que está.
Toată lumea pare live-ul. De ce nu mi-apare live-ul? Okay, Alexandra, can we start?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so let's see how many people are watching. Maybe we can wait like 5 minutes for other people to also join. And we'll start at 7 and 10 minutes.
Let's just talk a bit until then because there's no point in just waiting and not discussing anything.
Okay, let's have some chit chat. So, can you introduce yourselves? So, first of all, Kelly, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm currently a first-year student at the University of Oxford. I'm studying philosophy, politics, and economics. It's a pretty long degree title, so normally we call it PPE to abbreviate it. I'm from California in the United States, so I am an international student. I'm super excited to share a bit about Oxford with everyone.
And I'm Stefan. I'm a third year at Oxford doing computer science. I'm from Romania, I'm from Suceava, and I'm also happy to share my experience with you. I think that'll be it for introduction.
Okay, so I think we can start because now we have more people watching. Stefan, can you tell me about your admission process?
Sure. So the admission process for computer science for Oxford is you have to write an essay, that essay is seen by 5 different universities because you send your application through UCAS, which is the portal used in the UK. But specifically for Oxford, so you first have the essay, then you have to take a maths exam, and then depending on what score you have on that maths exam, then you have some interviews, which are technical interviews, meaning you get some computer science questions, some mathematics questions, and you need to answer them. Usually, you don't really need to finish them. They just want to see how you're thinking, and you have to think out loud. For example, in one of my interviews, I had to solve some probability question, and we don't really do probability in high school in Romania. So they had to actually explain to me some things during the interview. I didn't manage to finish the problem, but at least I managed to get to do more of it than I was. I did more than I was able to if they wouldn't have helped me. And they usually try to help you. So if you get stuck, they would give you a hint. And they don't try to make you feel bad or stupid. They actually try to help you to go through the problems. And then you just get the admission letter, and that's it for computer science.
So, in your extracurriculars from high school, you insert them in your essay, right? Or the things that makes you passionate?
Yes, but it's different from the States. Like in the UK, they care more about extracurriculars, but they have to be within what you want to study. For example, I can't say, oh, I'm playing bass, or I've done some improvisation, that won't help them to actually see my passion for computer science, but it has to be extracurriculars within that area. For example, Olympiads are good, robotics is good, you can do game design, you can do web pages, essentially anything which is related to what you want to study. Um, you have to show that you have a passion and you really, really like what you're doing pretty much. They have to see that in your essay, and then they have to see that during the interviews, because they will ask you about what other projects you've done lately. So usually in the beginning of the interview, so they just have to see that you're really passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay, that's really good to know.
And I have a really quick question. Are there people from FTC who get admitted because of that or get an advantage because of their results in FTC?
I don't think it's. I mean, there's definitely an advantage if you have something which you've done and you know really well, and you really like doing that. But it doesn't have to be like FTC specifically. There are people who've done robotics and they got into here, but it doesn't have to be something specific. It just has to be something related to what you want to study.
Okay.
Okay, Kelly, can you tell us about your process now?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say it's generally pretty similar. Since I applied for a humanities-based subject, it's a little bit different, but pretty similar. So I also had to write the essay where I talked about why I'm interested. The big question is, why are you interested in philosophy? For me, it was philosophy, politics, and economics. So about a third of the essay was on philosophy, a third on politics, and a third on economics. So I talked about, for economics, I talked about taking economics in high school and what I liked about that class. For politics, I talked about a research project I did. And then for philosophy, I talked about some articles I had read. I know a lot of my friends who are here right now, they read specific books that they were able to talk about in their personal statement, and they talked about why they liked the book. So really just showing a passion is really important in your personal statement. And then after writing the essay and submitting it to all the UK schools you're applying to, I also had to do a test. So instead of a math test, for me, it was called the thinking skills assessment. So it was just a bunch of problem solving questions and verbal reasoning. And then the test also had an additional timed essay where I wrote about a politics topic. And then after doing the test, they take a look at your personal statement, and it's just a test to see if you're passionate about the subject you're applying for. So I guess they saw my passion for PPE, and then they saw my test score, and it was good enough for them to invite me for the interview. So I also had an interview, and they just test your problem solving ability. And I think an important thing is to show that you aren't afraid of being wrong. So you can I know I got questions wrong, and it was totally fine. And I think they liked it when I admitted that I got questions wrong, and just showing that you have a good thought process and are able to think through things out loud. I'd say one more thing about the admissions process that is, I think, relevant is the college that you apply to. So for Oxford specifically, you apply to the university, but you also apply to a specific college. So for me, I applied to Balliol College. I know Stefan mentioned he did an open application. And I think now that I've been here for a while, applying to a college is important. So it's important to research the university and also specifically which college you're applying to, because I think it can shape your experience a lot.
So this question is for both of you. How can you prepare for these interviews and tests? You can find them on, let's say, the university site, or they give you some pinpoints?
I would say I remember my process was there are a few sample questions on the university website, admissions website. I didn't think they were particularly specific enough for me to really practice. I think what would be really helpful is thinking about questions, broad questions you could ask relevant to your subject. So for me, maybe politics, thinking about general questions about politics and talking about them with friends to practice your thinking out loud or philosophy, taking a look at thought experiments and talking about what you think about them.
Oh,
Yeah. For me, you can. They have like the past exams. You can they have them online. You also have the answers for them, and they also have the syllabus, so you know what you have to learn for the exam. But I that is relevant, but I don't think you have enough time if you prepare for like 1 month. You just go through the syllabus, learn it, and just do exams. Might be enough for some people, but if you want it to be easier for you, you'd have to learn constantly and work constantly for that. For example, what I did, I would go to maths Olympiads, computer science Olympiads, and uh, that would keep me used to solving those kinds of problems. So I needed like 1 month or 2 months before the exams doing only that, but I was already trained to like go through that kind of questions. So I think working constantly is probably the best thing you can do, because if you work constantly, even on a bad day, you'll manage to solve something. If you've been working for like just 1 week and then you have a bad day, then you're not going to be able to do very much on the exam. So
yeah. So, did you apply for any other universities before
yeah.
entering, being accepted at Oxford?
Well, I applied to the first university, like the first deadline was for Oxford. So when I applied, and you apply at 5 universities at the same time, I applied to Oxford, Imperial, King's College, Warwick, I think, and UCL.
Oh, so you knew you wanted to go
And
to the UK.
this is because this is how UCAS work, right? So it's just for the UK. So it was only
Ah,
UK universities, and since the deadline for Oxford was like 15th of October, you had to submit. When you submit your application, you submit to all the universities at once. Um, and then I also applied in in in, in the Netherlands at Delft, but that was in January, when I already had my results from Oxford. But yeah, I can say that Oxford was the first university I applied to, pretty much.
how about you, Kelly? What university did you apply to?
Yeah, I'd say similar on the UK side. Or so I applied to universities in the UK, in the US, and in Canada. So I did one early restrictive early action application in the US. So that was due, I think, it was due before the UK ones. So that was only one. And then I applied to 5 universities in the UK: Oxford, I think, Warwick, LSE, King's College, and UCL. And then I got my results back in January. And then I also applied to 2 universities in Canada. I applied to Western Ontario and McGill. And then in the US, I applied to 14, so I won't list all of them. The Canadian ones, I think I submitted my application around December, and then also same with the US ones. But then I heard back from Oxford before everyone else, and I knew that was where I wanted to go.
That's very nice. Alexandra?
Sorry, yeah, I was trying to speak. So I actually have another question for you. So I was wondering about your admission. How did you decide that you really want to go to Oxford? Like, it was someone who told you, or you started to get interested in this, or how exactly did you fall in love, let's say, with this Oxford? Kelly, or
Okay, I can go first. I think what really drew me to Oxford was the teaching system here. I think, at least growing up, when I heard about university, my impression of universities were you would go to class and sit in a giant lecture hall, and then you wouldn't really know your professors that well, and you just take your test, and then you graduate. And what's really unique about Oxford is the tutorial system, where yes, we do have lectures, but the majority of your learning is really done in these tutorials, where it's you, maybe one or two other students, relationship with your professors to know them that well, and then really getting a really high quality of learning is what really drew me to Oxford.
I also knew, I think, since like 10th grade that I wanted to study abroad. And I wanted to apply to the States. Then I redirected towards Oxford, probably because it felt more familiar to me. And that's also because of my computer science teachers who would like always tell me how nice it is here, and how their son's experience was, and I really liked what they were telling me. They also put me in contact with other students, and just the way they described how it was here, I liked it. Like you'd have like 8 intense weeks, right? Because that's how much the term is. But then you'd have like a break, and that sounded really, really great because I was used from high school to just have really intense weeks, but I didn't have that break afterwards, so it felt really nice. And also the fact that you have the chance to also do things which are not academic here. There's like lots of societies. You can do anything. You can do, I think, almost any sport. You can do rowing, hockey, running, windsurfing, and there's also like societies, for example, board game societies, so wine tasting societies. Like there's so many different things into one place, and you can just experience everything. And that was also like that's like aside the fact that Oxford is the best university. That was also like the first criteria, but also the fact that I had the chance to do something else that was also important to me.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you, for example, Stefan, can you talk about your major, your life around your major, or something interesting about your major, or about your professors, about how is the system there?
Okay, so I'll start with how the system is. So I mentioned there, like we have trimesters here. We have 3 terms. Each term is 8 weeks long, and then we have a break of about like 6 weeks between them. And those 8 weeks are pretty intense. We have usually 4 courses per term, and for each course we have 2 or 3 lectures per week, which is not that much. But then we will have 1 hour of tutorial each week for each course, and then if there is a lab, then you also have 2 hours of labs. But the most work that you put in, it's not actually during the lectures or during the labs or during the tutorials, but it's usually when you go to the library and you study a lot alone, or alone, but you can study with other people too. Then that's actually encouraged here. But there's just most of the time you try to figure out things by yourself. And the great thing is you can always email a professor or a lecturer and explain to them, oh, I didn't get this. Could you give me some other resources, or could you explain that to me again? And most of the time, people will help you. Also, this year, I'm doing a bachelor's thesis, and the professor is really, really nice because there's been weeks in which I didn't have lots of progress because it was hard for me to go through lectures and problem sheets and also do the project stuff. And he was really, really calm about it, and he told me something like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I understand. So people are not mad at you. They understand that if you have like a harder week." And I think that's really, really nice. You don't have. I mean, there's some pressure on you, but they're like not mean to you, and they're really understanding. And also, I was just saying something about the problem sheets. So in each tutorial, you have to solve a problem sheet before it, and then you discuss that problem sheet during the tutorial, and you get some marks on it. And that's usually what takes up most of the time, because depending on the difficulty of the problem sheet, it can take up from 8 hours to like 16 hours, something like that, depending how hard it is. Yeah, it's tough, but it's rewarding in the end because you actually get to understand things better. Other than that, I would say it's really nice compared to other universities. We have in the first year, in the second year, we have some compulsory courses that we have to take, and those are kind of our foundation. But after that, starting so from your second year, you have options, so you can choose what courses you take and which courses you don't take. For examples, I have friends who decided they wanted to have a more software engineering approach, and they took databases, architecture, networks courses, whereas I try to go towards machine learning, so I choose machine learning, AI. What else did I take? Physics for neural networks. So essentially, you can choose what path you want. You're not restricted on what you want to do after you finish university. And that, I think that's also really nice. And I was talking about the project this year, you can do the project in almost anything you want. Like there are like multiple themes, and you get to choose one, talk to a supervisor. Usually, if you talk with them in advance, you manage to find someone really good. Yeah, and they're really helpful with resources. If you need help, they give you the help. They give you reference papers which might help you with your research. For example, my supervisor even asked some people which are not from the university, some other researchers, to help me with my bachelor's thesis, which I think it's really nice. And I'm actually he also put me in contact with some DPhil students, and it's I like it that I get to interact with more people, and that I get to see what other research areas other people do, and I think that's really nice, and that just gives me like more space to explore pretty much what I want to do.
So you kept mentioning a supervisor. Can you explain to us in detail what a supervisor is and how they help you?
So in this case, a supervisor is someone who helps you to write your thesis. They just give you hints. For example, if you get stuck and you don't know what to do, they can suggest to either do experiments or to look into to read other papers if you get stuck, or how to find new research ideas, or what questions you should ask yourself. Or they can, for example, if you need to implement something, they might have already a tool which can help you, so you don't have to implement it from zero. It's pretty much someone who helps you along the way with your project. They don't do the projects for you, they just guide you along.
Because I remember you telling us last year you had like a course or like a prep with a teacher that only preps like 5 or 6 of you, and I think that's really helpful. I don't remember what you said about.
Yeah, I probably didn't mention this. So that was the tutorial. Usually, tutorials are really small classes of up to 5 people, 2 to 5 people, in which you just go talk with the tutor. So the tutor is different from the supervisor. The supervisor helps you with master thesis or bachelor thesis, or essentially if you do some kind of research. But a tutor just explains to you how you should solve the problem sheets and how you should prepare for the exams. But yeah, that's also really important at Oxford, that you have these tutorial groups which are really, really small. So the setting is very intimate, and you can just ask any questions. And I don't know if you're afraid to ask a stupid questions. At least you know it's just 4 other people hearing you, so there's no need to feel ashamed.
Okay. If you don't want to say anything more, we can go over to Kelly. And I know it's only your first year, but can you tell us about how is the school year structure at your PPE degree?
Let's see, how's the school year structured? It's a little bit different, I'd say. Or in general, the school year for your first year, there's, as Stefan was mentioning, there's some like core papers or core subjects for every single degree. So for PPE, everyone across the university is doing in their first year theory of politics, practice of politics, microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistics, general philosophy, moral philosophy, logic. So there's several core papers that everyone has to do, or core topics. And how they're broken up throughout the year kind of depends on which college you're at. So at Balliol, at my college, we only really focus on two at a time. So for 4 weeks, I'll focus on two, and then the next 4 weeks, I'll focus on two. Some of my friends at other colleges, they'll focus on one paper for 8 weeks. So it's broken up a little bit differently. But the way you focus on each paper is for any given week, whichever papers or subjects you're focusing on, you'll have some work set by you by your tutor. So you'll get an email saying, read this and write an essay about this in preparation for your tutorial. So I'll take the week to read through whatever reading I'm assigned. So last week for politics, I was reading about liberty and freedom. So I read a bunch of papers on that, and then I wrote a paper on liberty. So I think the essay question was how economic circumstances can affect your liberty or freedom. So I wrote that in, turned it in, and then during the tutorial, during our class, it was me, one other student, and the professor, and we were talking about liberty and what all the different authors and researchers have to say. And that's generally what a week looks like within a year.
So you also have this kind of tutorials with
Yes.
sponsor. But can you tell us about lectures? How are lectures are taught for you?
Lectures are basically supplementary to your tutorials. So, for an example, for politics, there's 24 lectures in a year, but I'll only do 6 weeks of politics, so 6 topics in politics, but there's 24 lecture topics. So they're there to supplement. So a few lectures will line up with your topics that you're focusing on, and the rest of the lectures are there to give you a broader sense of politics. They are optional, so if you don't think they're very relevant to you, there's no penalty for not going. I like going because it's interesting to hear what all the different professors have to say about the different topics that I don't get to learn about. But when I go to a lecture hall, it's only really halfway through the year. So it's your choice whether or not you want to go. But if you like whatever the lecture is about, you can go. And then you can also, you're free to go to lectures not part of your course. So if I wanted to, I could walk yes lecture and I could listen and no one would stop me.
So that's right. So both of you are saying that the individual study is the major type of studying.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely very self-driven. You have to be very motivated to study. There is some collaboration. So, say for philosophy, my tutorial partner and I, the other student who's in the same tutorial as I, we're pretty close. So we'll both do our reading for our philosophy essay, and then we'll get together over dinner and talk about the reading we did to help generate some ideas for the essay. But it is very self-driven.
So I have a quick question. How many people are in one of these tutorials? Like, how many of you are together?
It's about 2 to 5. So all of my tutorials right now, it's only me and one other person. But last term, I had tutorials where it was me and 5 other people.
So I would like to ask Stefan, because you're older and more experienced, what's something interesting that happened while maybe at the lecture, or some interesting problem you solved, something that would not happen at a basic university?
I'd probably say the most interesting thing that I've done. Um, I remember the machine learning lectures was really interesting. One of my favorites, actually, just because also the lecture was really active and he was involving the students during the lecture. He would like ask questions or make us compute integrals or no derivatives or something. I can't remember exactly, but I did enjoy that lecture. But like something interesting that I've solved. Um, I remember in first year the discrete maths problem sheets. So I already knew like the whole course because I did computer science. I did Olympiad in high school, and that course is essentially sets and graphs pretty much. But it was really interesting to see that although I knew the syllabus, the questions were so hard that it was, I would say, like 2 days for a problem sheet, and everyone around me would be like, how are we supposed to solve this? We don't have enough time. I can't give you like a specific question, but I remember it was, we would also like talk between each other. How did you solve this? How would you do this problem? And it was really tough, but we managed to push through. And for like a proper interesting question, probably during my bachelor's thesis, what I'm doing now for my project, I've never done research before, and I just find it like really interesting how it is to read some papers, get a bit of guidance, and then ideas just you just start having ideas. Oh, I should probably do this experiment, or this sounds interesting. Let's look into this. And for example, I'm looking at how cryptographic functions change the width and the depth of a neural network, and then I'm supposed to go to see how this affects transformers. But it's just interesting to see. Okay, now let's try to fix the depth of the network or try to fix the input length and see how the network pretty much changes. So I think that's really interesting, and I just feel more free because I don't have a specific deadline, and it's much more rewarding to work for that than to try and do a problem sheet under like some deadline. Like I have 2 days to do it. So yeah.
So you went a little bit technical there.
Yeah,
I think you lost some of us. But
yeah,
it's
well,
okay.
you asked for an example, so I thought, well, why not give it to you?
Okay, so can one of you maybe tell us about your life outside of uh, studying and some activities you take?
So this year I'm doing less activities just because I'm trying to focus more on my project and on studying. But last year I played a bit of bass at some point, so I played once with a band. Then I started rowing, which was really interesting. Just because you have to be with 8 other people in a boat, and you have to work together to balance the boat and make it go fast. And then during the trainings, which some of them are really tough, although you feel like you can't push anymore, you have other people around you, and that encourage you. So rowing was actually a big thing for me last year. And other than that, outside of like academics, there's always something happening in Oxford. I think in any single day you could go out. There's either a play or a party or just it can be a ball. It can be some people watching a movie. Like every single night, there's something to do. But you don't have time to go out every single night. But if you wanted to, you could do it. Pretty much.
Did you just say a bowl?
Yeah, a ball. I mean, they usually take place. I mean, I think today is the STEM bowl. They're like society bowls, and there's like college bowls. The college bowls, I think, I've never been to one because they're quite expensive. But from what I've heard, they're really nice, and you have like it starts in the evening and it lasts all the night. And some have like bumping cars, some have live music, you have food, you have one of them had like, how do you call this? Like the big wheels the panoramic wheels. How do you? Is this correct?
Ferris wheel.
A Ferris wheel?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Other than that, yeah, there's also like society events. So I think I've mentioned earlier, there's like lots of societies, and in every single week each society has an event. So it can either be like meet with another society, or for example, last week we had with the Romanian Society an event in which we were doing mărțișoare. So it can be like anything pretty much.
So there's a Romanian society, did you say?
Yes, there's a Romanian society.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. That's something. So, can you wish to tell us something about on that topic about extracurricular activities?
I'd say this term right now, I'm involved in not too many societies, so I'm mostly involved in one of the finance societies. So they have an academy where they teach you about like financial modeling and the basics you might need for like interviews or getting jobs. So I'm involved with the finance society. Last term I was involved in one of the consulting societies. So there's tons of like, I guess, pre-professional societies where you can get good experience to help you get a job later. So that's a really great thing. Then there's like less academic societies where I guess before I get to that, there's also one of the big societies here is called the Oxford Union. There's really great speakers there that go all the time, and it's a pretty big thing if you want to be a part of it. So some of my friends are really into the Oxford Union, and there's speeches and debates all the time, and they have like ex-presidents and ex-prime ministers come and speak. So there's always, on things to do in Oxford, there's always like some kind of speaker event going on, whether it's at the union or one of the departments, like the politics department or the economics department, is hosting a really great speaker. I'd say there's also societies like the American Society or the Asia Pacific Society. So wherever you come from, there's a society to help you connect to people. So when you're pretty far away from home, you don't feel too homesick. I'd say those are the big societies that I have been involved with so far.
So
Okay, and I have another question. I believe you guys stay in dorms, right? From the college. And do you think it's better to stay like that, or just I don't know, like rent an apartment or live somewhere different?
I'd say it's definitely better to stay in college accommodation. It's at least for me, it's cheaper than if I were to rent something. Next part is gonna sound weird, but there's also someone who like changes your bed sheets, so you have like less work to do. You're also close to the cafeteria, so you have food nearby, which is cheaper than if you were to eat somewhere else. So overall, and you also pay only while you stay in college. So if you rent a room somewhere, you would have to pay for the whole year, and it adds up more than if you just pay your accommodation at the college. So I would say it's better to stay in the college. But for example, next year, I'm not. They don't give accommodation for fourth years, so we had to look for a house to stay together. It's gonna be like 8 people sharing a place. But if there was the option, staying in college would have been better.
Okay. Kelly, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that college accommodation is definitely worth it and definitely less expensive. I think every college requires you to live in college for the first year. I'd say the college accommodation is pretty nice. There's a big variety in how big your room can be, but overall, it's really nice because all of the rooms are single rooms, so you don't have to have a roommate or anything. And then There's people, we call them our scouts, who will come and take out your trash a few times a week and like clean your room for you. So that's really nice that you don't have to think about it. And then you're just closer to everything. So when I want to do laundry, I just go downstairs and do my laundry. And then eating in the college is definitely a lot less expensive. So it's very convenient and very nice.
Okay, so one question I think everyone is thinking about is what are the costs of going to this university, or accommodation, food, and social networking.
Um, so if we're talking about uh, the academic fees, that's quite expensive. It's around, I don't know how much it is now, but as an international student, you pay around 50K a year, which is really expensive. And then to stay accommodation, I think it's another. Not sure how much. I think it's like per term, probably 1,400 pounds or something like that. And then if you eat in college, a meal would be around. So breakfast is like £2 or £3. That's really cheap. And then for lunch and dinner, you'd have like £5 or £6. But there's also like other options. You can just like there's a meal deal from Tesco which you can buy for like £4, and that's also cheap. But yeah, that would pretty much be the costs for like living here. The most expensive part is the tuition fee, pretty much. Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Kelly?
Yeah, I think I'd have pretty similar costs to you. Definitely academics. Fees are the biggest. Mine's like, for non-STEM subjects, it's a little bit less expensive. So I think I pay $43,000 a year, but it's still quite a lot, and definitely way more than domestic students have to pay. Accommodation fees, mine's a bit more expensive. Right now, I'm paying 1,900 per term. I think accommodation depends a lot on your college, and then also for food. I know my college lets me get a meal plan, so for lunches and dinners, it averages out to I think £2.5 per meal. So depending on the college you apply to, your food and accommodation could be a lot less or a lot more expensive. But for academic fees, which is the biggest cost, they are very expensive.
So, do you also spend money on like materials like books or something? Because I know a lot of people, a lot of students in Romania, they complain about how much money they spend on manuals and books. Or are they provided to you? This studying materials.
That is one big benefit of going to Oxford, I think, is that I bought a few books over the summer, but since arriving here, I haven't bought a single book. Oxford has like the most amazing library system ever. Where we call like the main library system the Bodleian Libraries, and there's some rule passed like 500, like 800 years ago that said every book published in the UK ever, a copy has to be sent to the Bodleian Libraries. So we have like every book ever. So you can request any book you want and get it. And I know my college library is really great. So I can just get a PDF of whatever book I want online from the Bodleian Libraries. And if I want a physical copy, I can just get one. So I haven't had to pay for any books at all.
Okay, so any book, really any book, can you find anything, or on
Literally
academic topics?
Any academic book, I
Okay.
guess I should say. There are some like fictional books, but the library does focus on academic
Okay.
books. So in regards to academics, I haven't been forced to buy anything.
That's. I don't think it balances the tuition cost, but it's nice. It's also an advantage. So I also heard from that at the Oxford University there are a lot of traditions, like rituals you do. Can you tell us about that? This, because I heard that I know you wear like uniforms,
Mhm.
like really fancy uniforms. Do you wear them every day?
Uh, Not really. Those are more for like
Oh,
exams. During exams, you have to like wear a full suit, and then you also have a sub flask, and then you also have a coronation. And the coronation, depending on which exam you're taking, it has a different color. If it's the first exam, it has to be white. If it's not the first nor the last, it has to be pink. And if it's the last exam, it has to be red. And you actually can't get into the exam if you're not dressed accordingly. And you also have to wear the same outfit during, I think, um, during matriculation. But you don't have to have the coronation. But other than that, you wear a full suit and the sub flask. So that would be one tradition. Another one, I was just talking to Kelly just before this meet. Uh, During the 1st of May, they have something called the May Day, and there's this college called Modlin, and they have like a really big tower. And from the Modlin Tower, there's a choir singing. I think at like 6 or 5 a.m. And the whole road is like packed with people waiting for the choir to sing. So that's also another really nice tradition. Um, there's also like rivalry traditions, especially with Cambridge. Last weekend there was the varsity match for rugby, for example. There will be the boat race, I think, next month. There's also like intercollegiate rivalries, and also, for example, in rowing, there are two really important races called the Torpids and Summer Eight. Torpids should take place this week, but I think there's only one day of racing instead of four because the river is flooded. Um, but during summer eight, there's usually 4 days of races, and just boats race each other, and they just try to catch up and like physically bump each other, and it's really fun to race them, and also really fun to watch them from the side. And that's also like a really big thing in Oxford, especially the last day of summer eight. Like the whole river, like the size of the river, like there's full of people. People make barbecues, they sell burgers, and it's like a festival in its own sense. And another tradition I can think of just after the exam is, I don't think this is endorsed by the university. I think it's banned actually. But what's happening? People would wait for you and thrash you. What would happen? You'd go to some close to a body of water. They would spray you with like champagne or how is it called? Shaving cream, colored powder, and then what would happen? Most people would just jump into that body of water, which can be dangerous, and that's why the university does not endorse this. But it does happen after the exams.
I'd say I'd add on for one more tradition that I think is really fun, or two more, I guess. One that I got to experience this year was Freshers Week. It's like your orientation week, the first week you arrive. There's a ton of cool events put on by your college, and you get to meet everyone in college. So there's really great support systems built into college. So you have parents. So you have your subject parents, who are people who do the same course as you and are 1 year above. So you get to meet them, and then they're a resource for you to talk to if you ever need any help with your subject. You also have college parents, which are just randomly assigned to you, and it's nice getting to know students who are experienced and have already been around the university for a year. Another really cool part of Freshers Week is a Freshers Formal, which introduces you to the really cool formal system that colleges have. They're really fancy dinners where you dress up. Some colleges require you to wear your subfusk, which is like your academic gown, which you also wear for examinations, and it's a really fancy dinner. during Freshers Week, our Freshers Formal was with all of our tutors. So you basically were having dinner with a bunch of professors, and that was really cool. So I think that's one of my favorite traditions.
Okay, those are really nice. And one last question that I have for you is that what advice would you give children that thinks is not good enough for Oxford? Maybe let's start with Stefan or
Yeah, give me a bit of time to just think about it.
or Kelly if you have an idea, anything really.
Let's see.
Like, for example, if I think about it, I don't know if I would want to go, but I definitely feel like it's really hard and it's a really good university, and I don't think if I could handle it. But let's say someone has this question and really wants to go to Oxford.
I would say it definitely seems very intimidating at first. Like when I was applying, I definitely did not think I was going to get in. I didn't even think I had a chance of getting an interview, but I think that just when you're applying, just giving it a shot, and who knows what will happen. And then I'd say being here, I expected to come here and meet everyone and feel really intimidated, but everyone is really nice. And there's definitely a community for everyone where they can feel that they belong. I think it was really easy to make friends and feel supported. So even when my schoolwork is really hard and I feel like I won't be able to finish an essay, everyone is in the same place and we all agree that it is hard, but you're able to get through it with all the support of everyone else.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly, and probably another thing would be just don't be afraid to try to apply to Oxford because it's not like impossible to get in. And I also didn't think I would get in. Like most people don't think they would get in, but the first step is to apply, even though you have your doubts or you maybe think you're not good enough. The most important thing is like to give all that you have, and at the end of the day, um, it's not only about like getting into Oxford, but it's also about who you become while trying to get into Oxford. And I think that's also really important because your life doesn't end when you get to the university; it continues after that.
Oh, that were some really good words. You touch our hearts. It was the way you said it was really beautiful. So thank you very much for accepting to do this meeting with us.
Thank you for having us.
It was awesome. It was everything we expected it to be. And again, thank you very, very much for taking your time and talking to us. And I hope the people watching have maybe now have a feeling that maybe they should look into Oxford and aim high.
Also, if there's like anyone watching and they still have any questions, they can reach
They
out
can't.
to me. And
we have a problem with the chat, so they can't.
I mean, like you did tag us on the Instagram post.
You
so
can find them on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're really nice people. They will answer. Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you too. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Băi, am zis lui fata asta să stea.